In today's fight news, superstar Conor McGregor tells Ariel Helwani that for his return to the octagon, he would like to do a 3-round fight to quote-unquote sharpen the tools, after which he would move up to a 5-round fight. McGregor was quoted as saying, "I might say to them, I just want to do 3 rounds for this one. I just want to wet my beak." When asked about his weight, McGregor says he hasn't been on an official weigh-in scale since his last weigh-in 3 years ago. When asked about his rival, Nate Diaz, McGregor was quoted as saying, "Nate is great. That's a real fighting man. The two brothers are real fighting men. I always had the height of respect for the two lads. I appreciate his support. I wish him well. I'll always wish to see past opponents and potential future opponents again, to see them do well. What a monumental moment that will be when we get that one done." Also on the MMA Hour, Michael Venom Page says he thinks Ian Machado Gary is the next fight to make. MVP tells Ariel Helwani that he'd like 2 more fights this year. 1, UFC Fight Night in the UK in July, and 2, UFC 306 at the Sphere in September. When asked if he sees the difference between Bellator and the UFC, Page had this to say: "There's definitely a bigger wave of interest now after joining the UFC. I've noticed a difference. I'm a petty guy, so yes, I keep receipts, but at the same time, I understand it. I'm also capable of putting my ego to one side as well. You have to keep showing, proving to people regardless." Also on the MMA Hour, Benoit Saint-Denis tells Helwani that he hopes to get 2 more fights in before the end of 2024. He names lightweight Beneil Dariush as a potential opponent for possibly June or July. He hopes to also fight at UFC Paris, which he expects to be in late September. When asked about his most recent defeat at the hands of Dustin the Diamond Poirier, Saint-Denis had this to say: "I would have loved to have a bit more energy to give Dustin Poirier more than 5 minutes. It was very difficult. I was tired the whole week with a staph infection. Maybe this is also my fault. I came a bit too heavy. So with the treatment I took, the weight was not going down as usual. I had 2 more kilograms to cut to make weight. It was too difficult, and I paid the price the day after." The Frenchman wants a rematch with Poirier. He hopes Dustin beats Makhachev and they get to fight for the UFC lightweight title in their rematch. Benoit was quoted as saying, "I hope to get back at him. I hope he wins against Islam Makhachev. I hope we do the right job to get back to the place to get him in front of me." Tim Welch, the coach of bantamweight champion Sugar Sean O'Malley, tells Ariel Helwani he hopes to see O'Malley return in either September, October, or November, but preferably September at the Sphere. When asked about O'Malley's future opponent, Merab the Machine Dvalishvili, he had this to say: "Merab is just an animal. His 5-round cardio is so scary. I know also, he's never faced anybody like Sean. It's gonna be a big cage. I'm really excited. There's definitely ways for us to win. There's ways for us to lose the fight too. If we show up not on that night, Sean shows up every time. But Merab is a problem. He really is." When asked about comments made by Chito Vera, O'Malley's most recent opponent, Welsh had this to say: "Marlon Vera's team says that if that fight would have been no time limit, Chito would have won. But I'm like, dude, if that fight's no time limit, both his eyes are going to be swollen shut, and he's going to be the one getting killed. So I don't know what they're talking about there." PFL co-owner Don Davis tells Ariel Helwani that Cedric Doumbé will likely be added to the Bellator Championship Series event in Paris, France on May 17th. He did not reveal if it will be a rematch with Bysingor Chamsudanov or someone else. Davis also had this to say about a future PFL pay-per-view that will be taking place at Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. For the headliner for the event will be former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou taking on current PFL heavyweight champion Hernan Ferreira, with the co-main event being Chris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. And as mentioned earlier, Cedric Doumbé and an undetermined opponent to be announced. Shortly after Don Davis's announcement on the MMA Hour, former Bellator women's featherweight champion Chris Cyborg took to X, posting, "Don Davis shouldn't break news he hasn't finalized. He did this with Kayla Harris, and he's doing it again. Nobody has talked to me to see if I will fight in Saudi." In other MMA news, the UFC will be making their return to Paris, France on September 28th at the Accor Arena. The headliner will likely be heavyweight Cyril Gane. The ongoing UFC antitrust lawsuit has come to an end as they will settle out of court. A settlement of $335 million has been agreed upon by both parties. The UFC anticipates that the settlement will be tax deductible. The wife of UFC welterweight standout Ian Machado Gary took to social media to try to dispel some rumors about her and her husband, during which she brought up the name of former middleweight champion Sean Strickland. Strickland was quick to reply on social media with the following post. We finish up with a couple fight announcements. Standout Pooja Tomar will be making her UFC debut, taking on Ryan Amanda at the UFC's event on June 8th. Welterweights Tim Means and Uros Medic will face off at UFC Vegas 91 on April 27th.